So welcome everyone. As you can see today, we're about Ready Set CMS. Hopefully you're in the right places and this is a webinar that you were looking for today. We're excited to present a pretty technical topic and real life terms today. First, I wanted to tell you a little bit about who Keystone Click is. We're a strategic digital marketing agency. We help our clients build awareness and generate leads online. And we do that by conducting research and collecting insights that allow us to build a plan that is focused on the goals of the client. So I'm Margie Hayworth. I'm our Director of Accounts and Operations here at Keystone Click. I have 20 plus years of marketing experience, including both traditional, and I'd like to call that old school, and digital marketing. And with me today, we're like pulling back the curtain to see the wizard is Mitch. Mitch, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Mitchell Gobin. I am the website developer here at Keystone. I have 8 years of experience in both the software engineering application development side and in web development. So what I'm going to be doing today is trying to break down these really complex topics and try to give it to you in straight English, so that way you guys can really understand the meat and potatoes of this issue.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Mitch, on this. It's great to have the technical person alive. As we mentioned, we have a couple things we want to cover today. The first is helping you pick the right website platform. There are many web platforms out there. Boy, that's a tongue twister. Didn't know that. And so we're going to give you a little idea of strengths and weaknesses of each kind of type. We're also going to talk about the editing and management that you can do to a website using what's called the CMS, or content management systems, that come with those platforms. And then we're going to talk about what you need to know about domains and hosting. So it's a little bit of the technical stuff, again, hopefully in terms that everyone will have no trouble with at all. So let's go ahead and dive right away into website platforms. I'm going to turn it over to Mitch to talk about this a little bit.
Absolutely. And as I'm talking, feel free to put any questions in the chat. I'll be paying attention and we'll answer those if they're really relevant or right at the very end. So where to start, right? In today's era of technology, there are many companies, individuals, and developer communities that have popped up to provide website services. With a plethora of choices, picking the right platform for you can be very overwhelming. I hope the information I provide today will aid you in making that right choice. The way I'm going to break this down is, putting these into clouds. I feel like it's the best way to describe it. It's, it's just a giant, big, gaseous cloud of different solutions, right? And these solutions vary based off of what you're looking to do and how you're looking to approach your problem.
Ready for the next one?
Yep.
All right.
So we're going to talk about the self-hosted platforms, and those are like your Wix, your Shopify, your Squarespace, Weebly, and these are those pre-packaged solutions that you can take care of. They're usually very easy to set up. The built-in tools for editing are already really there, and domain hosting is taken care of by the provider. Where these platforms tend to be on the weaker side is in design options and how the editing tools are very basic, and those things go hand in hand. The look and feel of your site is going to feel very basic due to this, due to these limitations, as well as the e-commerce. Due to the same limitations of those editing platforms, the e-commerce side of it is going to be very limited as well. You'll be able to put, a couple hundred SKUs up and stuff like that, but it really doesn't handle large scale business very well.
So Mitch, why do you call this self-hosted?
Self-hosted is because when you sign up with these companies, it's all through them. Every single bit is, self-hosted through that company.
So the package includes what?
It would include your domain, the hosting package that's taken care of. It would take care of the tools themselves are all included in that package.
So it's a one and done. Now that makes sense to me. All right, let's talk about the next kind then.
Absolutely, open source. And in my honest opinion, this is one of the bigger clouds in this section for sure. The amount of platforms here. Sorry, I was lost for words. The amount of platforms in this cloud exceeds the others that we're going to be talking about today.
And what does
The
open
strengths of,
source mean? I'm sorry to interrupt though, but
oh
I just
no,
want
you're
to feel
fine.
for what does that mean? I mean, why do we call it that?
Because this is around those developer communities I mentioned when we were talking about in the previous slide. These are open source communities where developers from all around the world, including myself, have contributed
Mhm.
to these platforms
I see.
in many different ways, either in the plugins that you're going to be using to find the functionality you want, to the actual core programming of these platforms. Uh, and that's one of the strengths and weaknesses of this platform, of this cloud, is that's open source ideology. There's a lot, the editing tools for this are very strong, very flexible design choices,
Mhm.
and the e-commerce is feature rich because when people want something on these platforms, they build it. But that's that falls on both sides of the fence here. With these plugins, you have to vet what you're looking at. Uh, you might not want to do that one because they haven't updated it in 6 months. And that's when you can rely on someone like me to be like, hey, that's a good thing to go for, or no, just stay away from that one. Here's a better one instead. These platforms tend to scale really well with growth, and the setup time for these is usually middle of the road.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, they're pre-developed, still under, there's always new stuff, right? But you kind of have to really watch out what you choose because you want to make sure it's a good piece of software.
Absolutely. And with this cloud, you have a moderate learning curve, right? If you wanted to handle this stuff yourself, you need to know what you're looking at. You need to do some research and some reading. So there's a
Okay.
very moderate learning curve for this
So having
platform.
a developer friend is a good thing.
Yep.
All right. And what's our third type of software?
And that goes to proprietary. The proprietary cloud that we're going to be talking about today is going to be the most advanced and most feature rich of the three clouds. This is for the people that have a very specific idea and need a very specific problem solved that can't
Okay.
be done with a plug and play system.
Okay, great. That sounds fantastic because it's so designed just for me. What are the weaknesses here?
The weaknesses are really it's a very high investment cost and a very steep learning curve because you would need a Mitch to sit down and build this for you. You
I
would
see.
need to have that developer. And the thing is if you wanted to transfer that to another platform in a little, say you're to change up how things were to be working, it's really not that easy to transfer. You would need a developer to either transfer it or bring the developer that you currently have with you.
So it's hard to break up with you, Mitch, if we don't like you after
Yes.
you build us a website that's proprietary. I get it. Good thing
Hmm.
we like you. Um, so tell me a little bit about this graph. What do you mean by form follows function?
Yeah, so in this graph, I really want to preface what we're looking at here with in the last year, in this COVID world we've been living in, e-commerce and websites have become an increasingly important part of business today. The complexity of your website will make the difference in what platform you choose because it's not only adds features and help for you, but for your customers and who you want to reach, right?
Mhm.
And I put together this graph because all this information was all in my head, and this is something I wanted to share with everybody else. Is that as your website gets more functional, right? As you have more advanced functionality in your website, the ease of setting up and using e-commerce goes down, right? So in a proprietary system, say if I was to build you something and you wanted to update a product, you'd have to come to me to do it. Whereas, in an open source or self-hosted platform, you either can learn how to do it for the open source or it makes it incredibly easy in a self-hosted platform.
I see. So
Um,
your e-commerce is everywhere. It's just how easy is it for the average person to do it for yourself?
that is 200% correct.
Oh, got
Um,
it.
the relationship for for this is the same setup is the same for editing, right? So
Okay.
you would think, as the depth of your functionality of your websites get more more advanced, you think, oh, it should be easier to edit that. Well, that's not the case in a lot of situations. Um, it follows the same line as this, that as the ease of editing your site is over in that self-hosted section. Um, your open source is, that, like I said, that moderate learning curve, and your proprietary is the most difficult to edit, because you're going to need a Mitch. You're going to need to have to call me up and say, hey, I need to change this paragraph up today. I want to add images. I want to add products.
Well, that brings us right to our next topic, which is great, which is CMS. What is it and why does it even matter? So what happens after your website is developed? It's really important to understand that the best websites are not a one and done kind of thing. Making updates and changes, it's an important part of keeping your website relevant and finding your way to the top of search engines like Google. Hey, that's a whole nother topic we'll talk about later in this webinar series, and that's SEO, so stay tuned. But let's talk a little bit about what do you do with these different platforms and what CMS is after your website is made. So what is a CMS? What is a content management system? Basically, it's the software part of your website that helps users like you and I create, manage, and modify the content on a website without the need for Mitch, without the need for specialized technical knowledge. You can build a whole website without needing to write code at all from scratch with some of these management systems. It handles all that back-end infrastructure and that functionality that you don't know how to make happen. And it makes all of the content that you create show up for visitors exactly like you want it to do. So different platforms, and we've talked about those different kind of platforms, come with different CMS options to control how you add the content and how your visitors see the content afterwards. And as Mitch mentioned, that ease of the ease of changing things varies. If it's an open source, it tends to be very easy to do things, but you don't get a lot of function. If it's proprietary, you have a lot of great functions going on, but it's a little hard to do things. And then an open source is kind of that sweet spot in between. So let's take a look at what we mean by content, because I think that most of us, when we talk about content, we picture the words on the website page. And that is certainly one kind of content that your CMS helps you with. But there's a lot of other kinds of content, and this is where the sites get more functional and there's more interesting things going on in your sites. If you have an e-commerce site, you also have products. From a website point of view, that's a type of content. Written content, you could have blogs, white papers, case studies. Sometimes you want to show your team. And you want a little profile for each of your team. That would be a type of content as well, testimonials. And we all know how important visuals are anymore. So you want your content management system to be able to handle your images, videos, infographics, organize it and be able to display it well and have some capabilities for moving those things around. So those type of content is all what your content management system will control for you. So the second part of that is it's managing the content, and it's also managing how your content is displayed, what it looks like to your users. And in this case, I'm going to talk about stability versus flexibility. Your CMS will determine how much control you have over your content, how it's displayed. And control is a relative thing. If control means to you personally that you want the ability to change a page layout, recenter a picture, add a graphic, pre-design an interactive element, change the colors, you want to be able to move and jive and change that page every way possible. If that's your kind of control, that is possible, especially in the open source type of platforms like WordPress and Drupal. But that flexibility comes with great responsibility. As you're moving things around, it's really easy to break the site, lose track of good design, move outside of your brand guidelines, and just honestly, truly mess up your site and make it what, like I affectionately call, fruit salad instead of a well-designed message.
Then at that point, you would need a Mitch.
At that point, you need a Mitch to help sort yourself out. But if control means that you want a website that you can't break, or that your good design remains, or your branding is held and maintained, you might want to choose a CMS with more limited capabilities. Each platform has a range of display editing capabilities that are possible. The two examples I have here are a Drupal site and a WordPress site. both kinds of flexibility are possible with both kinds of sites. But you can see with the Drupal with the lower left that all I can do is I can type text into certain areas. And I chose the WordPress one to show you. You see that little blue dot on the left-hand side? I can move that picture around and it changes the function, like exactly where the focal point is. There's a whole lot of fine control there. So many things are possible. So when we get down to it in comparison, self-hosting is simple and easy to use. You have a limited amount of control of design, and mostly there are a few pre-designed themes that are available. They're pretty simple, and you have a few limited add-ons. Open source in the middle is kind of like the best of both worlds. You have a variable ease of use. You could have easy, you could have hard. You have variable control. And I'm sure any of you have worked with websites before, have heard of like builders, like Beaver Builder or Gutenberg. You get to choose a builder and that works for you and how easy it is. Extensive pre-designed layouts are available and extensive add-ons for functionality are available. When you move over to the proprietary end, a website that is custom coded just for you, your ease of use varies because it's how much control you want to have. Your programmer will design that. Your editing, though, is often very limited because they don't want you to mess up the functionality of the site. All the layout is custom and your functionality is unlimited, but it requires skills. You need a Mitch on your team. So all of that said, that's all up there in the cloud of, hey, we're talking about possibilities. I thought it would be really useful to give some real life examples. So it's actually a quiz. Are you ready? And we're looking for audience involvement here. I'm going to give you an example. And after all of that, you tell me what kind of platform makes sense for Horatio. Horatio has a hobby shop and he loves his RC cars so much that he actually holds races every weekend. He wants to track the times and provide all those results on his website. But that's his fun part of his website. He also wants his website to be a really good e-commerce website. And he has a lot of RC products like planes and drones and the cars. And he has like all these support parts for it. So he has like over 10,000 SKUs. And his business is doing really well because it's COVID and people are bored and they want stuff they can do outside. And he's looking to scale up and he wants a really great website and he's looking for a partner to work with long term. So he's willing to put a little bit budget behind this. What kind I see somebody's already guessed. What
Yes.
kind of platform do you think Horatio makes sense for him? Any other guesses? I see one.
Am I allowed to guess?
No, I could sing the Jeopardy music, but no one will want to hear that. We got proprietary from another one, open source. Proprietary, any other guesses here? All right, the answer is proprietary. And that's because Horatio really has a complex set of things he wants to do. He's got a lot of moving parts. He's got a big database of SKUs that he wants to deal with. So a proprietary system probably would work best for him. So Betty's boutique, I got fun with alliteration here. Betty has a business and it's a boutique. She is not very tech savvy, but she does want to be able to add products and information about specials. She has 100 or so products she'd like to sell online. They don't change a whole lot, but seasonal and monthly sale items. She doesn't have a big budget. And while she has nice product photos, she isn't really a wizard at graphics. So she could use some, like something that's going to help her with that. Which system do you think would be the best for Betty? Any guesses? I see self-hosting as guess number one. Self again. All right.
Yeah, we got 2 of those.
No third guess here. All right. Self.
You're all
And
correct.
you guys are all right. Self-hosted. You've got this. She needs something simple and not too crazy or functional. She just needs the basics. Woohoo, Spencer. All right. So then we have one other choice, and I'm calling it David's Delicious Dining and Digs. He's got a catering and party space, and it is growing. But it's a little complicated because he sells to businesses and to individuals. Sometimes they want catering brought to them, and sometimes they want to rent his facility. So he's got a lot of messaging there to take care of. He has a small staff, and honestly, he's got a couple great millennials on his staff who are really tech savvy, who are ready to go. And his product is changing all the time. So he needs it really easy to update. Did I mention he was growing? He's thinking about adding food trucks for festivals and events. I mean, this guy is so Milwaukee. So what do you think would be the likely platform that would work for him? Open
The
source,
two open
open
source
source.
answers.
Any other guesses here? All right, you guys are right. Open source, a little bit of flexibility, but not so much that he can't control it. Excellent. We all get A's today. So now I think we will take a few minutes and talk about domains and hosting. And this is where it can get a little bit technical, and why we have Mitch here to help us, because a lot of times people don't understand this relationship to your website. Okay, domains, what are they? And I think you all probably know what a domain is. It's that word that you type in that says keystoneclick.com, and that's the name of your website. It's, what was that? Okay.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
All right. You know, it is the name you type in your browser, but there is more to it than that. And this is where we get confused. It's the name of an address on the internet, but what it isn't, it isn't your website, and it isn't your hosting service, and it isn't your email server. Those are three things that people often think are the same thing, and they're not. They're three different things. If you have a domain and you have a website, you probably have worked with a domain registrar. You went and, a lot of people say bought their domain, but really honestly, you're renting your domain from a place like Bluehost or GoDaddy or HostGator. These are some of the most common ones. When you purchase domain, you may also choose to purchase email with that registrar, and some of them may also offer hosting, but all three of those items are separate services that you can move at any time you want. And that's where we get to what DNS is. And most of the time when we talk to clients, this is where we get a lot of confusion, because to better understand what your domain and DNS is, you have to understand a little bit about the internet. So every device that is connected to the internet has a number. It's called an IP address, and you've seen them. There's that 62.da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, that big long number. The DNS system is like the post office. It connects that street address or that number to the name we commonly call it. So I'm going to use the example that you see here. Somebody's going to send a message or wants to look at my website here, Keystone Click. So their message first makes it to the post office, which is the DNS. And then they find out that the server is maybe in the Marshall building where our offices are. And then finally it gets to our server where, you know, oh yeah, suite 307. Yes, that's our server. So that's how people find us, is your domain name registrar, because they are hooked up to this naming system called the DNS, or domain name system. The biggest problem we encounter with websites are when businesses can't find the credentials to the system, because what the system does is it allows you to change that information. Let's say the company that you had hosting your website is going out of business, and you need to move your website to a new server or a new hosting environment. Well, the way you tell the internet where to find you is this DNS. So it's really important that you never lose your credentials. And on a side note, never let your domain expire. That is a rental, and if you let it expire, someone else can buy it, and you may never ever get it back. So those are two little words of advice about domains. So what about website hosting? How do you make that decision, Mitch?
So what matters most when you're trying to determine, you know, where you should host your website is really just as important as picking the platform you build your website on. These are the places where your files of your website live. This is where you basically, where your home is. You know, to use the analogy that Margie used before, is when the domain name system is looking for your home, they're looking for that address, everything inside your home is that content of your website. It's what makes your website tick, right? It's those comforts of your home. This idea of hosting, you have to, keep some things in mind. The traffic you're going to be getting to your website, the size of your website, and that's including content, and how secure you need it to be. And I'm going to go into those three topics a little bit more detail here. When looking at a website, that we host, we evaluate on a number of factors, and how much traffic is one of the first things we look at. Think about your commute on a freeway, right? Too many cars going the same direction is going to make a backup, right? You need to add another road or add another lane to that highway. This is one of those things we consider, right? So if you're, like Betty's Boutique, 100 products, downtown, a downtown boutique, she has she makes her own jewelry or whatever it is, you may not get thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people traveling through that pipeline. So you can take a smaller one and be completely okay. And that leads me to, the size discussion, right? She only has 100 products. It's a relatively smaller website, right? So we can pick a smaller hosting plan because of that same reason. As compared to that proprietary website, Horatio's, that's huge. That's going to have a lot more images. It's going to have a lot more content. It's going to be a heavier file. So we're going to need a stronger hosting platform or plan to support that. And then the last thing, and arguably, in my opinion, the most important part of picking a hosting plan, because the traffic and the size, you can scale those as you grow, right? Those can be adjusted. The security is really where you really need to pay the most attention to what you're doing, or pay the most attention to who you're picking, right? The first thing I always ask people when we're going over the security question is, do you have an SSL certificate? And that might just sound like a bunch of letters right now, but really what that is, think of it like a driver's license. You can get in your car and drive right now without a driver's license, but if you get caught, you're in trouble. An SSL certificate is very much the same way, right? You can have a website on the internet without an SSL certificate, but if you get caught by a hacker or someone with, malicious intentions, you're going to be in trouble, right? There's been, plenty of things I've seen in my career, and I think Margie has a story about it as well, yeah, that, these things can really have problems in your website. And, that includes, go ahead, Margie.
I was just going to jump in because, you mentioned that security. I know that's the SSL is, something we can purchase, but you can purchase and you can make sure it's part of your hosting environment. But one of the most important security things, and I know Mitch is going to get to this shortly, is good passwords that you take care of. I've been working with websites for quite a while. One of the things that happened to one of my clients at one point was their site got hacked, and it was horrible because the site got hacked and and pornography got put on the site. So it was a respected engineering firm, and they were very embarrassed. And so, of course, right away we're looking into where was this breach of security. And it turned out it was one of the people who had access to edit their CMS had a very weak password and had not changed that password in a long period of time. So a hacker was able to keep pinging that name and finally got in and got control of their website and caused a lot of embarrassing things to happen. So it's as simple as making sure your passwords are complicated. And I'll let Mitch say, what would a good password have?
Yeah, so that is and the thing is I've seen many stories like that in multiple different avenues. A good password is, it uses letters, numbers, and symbols, right? It's something that a bot can't just guess or is even related to you, right? Like, you want to make sure that it's a complete random generation of letters and numbers. And there's websites out there that are good for that, right? Password generator, you can Google that and you can generate an alphanumeric password, right? There's software out there now that's free to use that keeps your password safe and secure, like Mikey and LastPass. Those are phenomenal resources to use to keep your password safe. And it's one of the biggest things when I'm looking at a website, if I'm auditing a website, one of the things I look at is how many users do they have and how many of them are using secure passwords, right? If they have a ton of users, the risk of infiltration is so much higher. And the last
anything else important?
Yeah, there's one more thing I want to talk about, and it's really quick, and that's something called the reCAPTCHA. It's something that every website should have, and it prevents robots from doing those malicious activities, because people can just set a robot to do something and go through the internet and find the weak points. If you have a reCAPTCHA, that really helps prevent those issues.
Slows it down.
It slows it down for sure. Every website is vulnerable, and it always will be. There's it's hard to keep up with all of those things, but keeping the industry standard is just the bare minimum, right? You want to make sure that that's where you start, and that'll keep you safe. But start at the industry standard, which is strong passwords, reCAPTCHA, and making sure your website's up to date and you pick a solid hosting platform.
Awesome. That is, in summary, what we wanted to talk about today, but we have some time for some questions that I just wanted to kind of go over in summary what we talked about today. You have choice for website platforms. You want to take the time to match the strengths and weaknesses to your business needs. You want to choose a content management system that helps you keep your website fresh and keep your domain current for sure, and choose hosting and security that optimizes your site performance and keeps it safe. So at this point, we have a little bit of time. If you have any questions that we could answer, we'd love to entertain them now.
Absolutely.
Well, I have a question that came in on the private here. Mitch, how often should you rework your website?
It really, you would expect the answer to be different for each platform, but it's really all around the same. You really want to start looking at replacing your website every 3 years. Technology changes so quickly and
Wow.
so rapidly that every 3 years you really want to look at updating content, updating design, updating security protocols. You really want to hit all three of the things we mentioned today, every 3 years.
Well, and I would add to that from a marketing perspective. That would be kind of the overall, like an overhaul of your software. But I do want to say, as a marketer, you should be updating your website regularly. There should be something new like every month, because you want to keep those search engines looking at your site. Oh, I've got something new. It'll come and look at your site. So updating is a very important process. But it sounds like from a software point of view, every 3 to 5 years or so, we should really think about updating our software part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. 3 years is a good time to start thinking and taking action. 5 years is a definite. That's a hard cutoff of when you want to switch.
Okay.
Sasha asked, can you repeat what are the things I need to check today? My DNS certificate and what? So what I would recommend checking is make sure that your DNS has been renewed, right? Check to make sure that your site has an SSL certificate. Margie, do you have anything else to add?
No, I was just going to say, make sure when your domain renews, that like your keystoneclick.com is your domain, and make sure when it renews, you get it renewed. Make sure you have your credentials to sign in, your name and password to sign into your DNS in case you want to make a change.
Yep.
Then make sure your site has the SSL certificate. And I would say, take a look if you can and you have access to how many users are in your CMS, and make sure that it's a limited number, only the people who really need to be in there, and that they have good, strong passwords. I mean, those are the 4 things you could do today to help keep your site secure.
There's one more thing I'd like to add, and that's, this is one of those optional things is, if you're using a CMS like WordPress or Drupal, you want to take a look at what plugins / modules you're using. If anything is warning you, saying it's near its end of life or stuff like that, you're going to want to either, contact a developer or do some research and, see if you can update those plugins to make sure that they're the most secure that they can be.
Yes, absolutely. I don't see any other questions at the moment, but I do want to mention that we do have a website strategy session that is basically a real steal. We do a high-level website audit to take a look at your website on a number of different levels. And then we also look at your navigation from a marketing and user experience point of view and walk that through with you. So it's a really great way to just do a quick checkup on your website. And that's available for only $99. And that could give you a great peace of mind There's a place on our website right here, keystoneclick.com. Website strategy is the place to go and look for that offer. Otherwise, you can either contact myself, or we're going to put a couple other contacts on the last screen for you. I also wanted to mention that we have a couple more in this mini series about website design. Next time, we're going to talk about that customer journey, how your customers use your website. We have a fun section called Cocktails and Case Studies, where we share a great cocktail recipe and talk about case studies and good design in this case. And we have a really great guest going to join us for that one. Then we're going to do content and SEO. And lastly, it's very popular, our expert panel, where we have 3 or 4 experts from across different disciplines come in and talk about what's great about website design. And they talk about failures as well, which are a lot of times where we all can learn a little bit more. So at the end here, this is where I said you can contact either Lori Hybe or Will Jurgensen. If you have further questions, or if you have questions, they can direct you to either Mitch or myself, but it's a great place to look. We also have another giveaway, actually. It's called our Guide to Profits, that if you want to go to that URL there, you can receive our tips for Guide to Profits, and that's an overall digital marketing, not just website design. So thank you so much for joining us. If there are any more questions, Mitch and I are happy to hang out for a few minutes here and answer them. Otherwise, join us 2 weeks from now for the next one in our series. Thanks a lot.
And just so everyone knows, I put the 2 links to the URLs that Margie had mentioned in the chat below. So if you want to click on those and take a look now, you're more than welcome to.
Great. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Anytime.
All right, I don't see any additional questions. Thanks a lot. We're going to sign off now. Again, have a great day.
See you later, everybody. All right.